welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are doing another little treat box for Easter. This is another one inspired by DiMatteo. She is the Paper Pixie here on YouTube. She is an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and she does strictly lives now. I do not have the time to watch a full live, but I really love her projects. So I will be sure to list her website and the episode number that I am using is the inspiration for today's project in the description box below. I do encourage you to go check her out. She is wonderful. She is very creative. She does a lot of like Q&A at the end of hers, and she uses strictly Stampin' Up! Products. I am using what I have in my stash. So let's go ahead and jump in. So to start this project off, she used, I'm going to show you ones that I've already kind of made. These hold the Altoid smalls, or the mini ones, and this box opens like this. Isn't that just so cool? I just think that is super darling, really fun. I don't know, I just think that's a really cool little box. The finished dimensions are, let's see, 1 7/8 by 2.5 by about 5/8 deep. So I'm sure you can find other things to fit in this box, but this was designed specifically for the Altoid smalls, which I had to purchase online on Amazon because I couldn't find them in any of my local stores. But I live in the boonies in Texas, so you may have better luck where you are. So let's go ahead and get into it. First things first, I have a piece of cardstock, and I do recommend using a fairly heavyweight cardstock. Not that your Altoids are heavy, but just so that this has a much sturdier and more professional finish. So I do recommend a heavier weight cardstock. I believe the one I'm using today is 100 pound. I made, I'll just show you real quick. I made these in 4 different colorways. I am using a paper pad from Hobby Lobby. This is FLORAL. I think it is still available as of the filming of this video. And then I am using colored cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse, and I will list the colors that I'm using down below. So let's go ahead and get into it. You're going to start with a piece of cardstock that measures 5 5/8 by 5 5/8 square. So 5 5/8 is 1 tick mark on my scoreboard past the 5.5 mark. So you will make your paper 5 5/8 by 5 5/8. On one side, pay attention in this video in particular to your scoring and some of your cutting. So I'll try to go slow and make sure that we can get this all together so you come up with something that you are pleased with. So on the first side, you're going to score at 5/8, which again is 1 tick mark past half. So 5/8, you're going to score at 2.5 and at 5. Okay, oops, I jumped the line. If that ever happens to you, one of the things you can do is just flip your paper over and kind of gently scrub over that with your tool, and that'll kind of help that line disappear a little bit. Most of this is all going to be covered up with a designer series, you know, with pattern paper, so it doesn't really matter. But anyways, so 5 5/8 on one side, you score at 5/8, 2.5, and 5. You're going to rotate this counterclockwise. So a clock goes this way, you're going to rotate your paper this way. So I'm going to take my paper and put that corner over there. And you're going to score at 2.5 and 3 1/8. So 2.5, 3 1/8, which is 1 tick mark past 3. Okay, and you're going to score all of those ones straight down. So on the 90 degrees, you had our paper like this. We rotated it counterclockwise 90 degrees, put that in the corner, scored at 2.5 and 3 1/8, all the way down. Okay, so this is what our paper looks like right now. All right, so next you're going to score at 5/8 and 5, but only to that second score line. So you've got 1 score line here, 1 here, and 1 here. You're going to score at 5/8 and 5 past this first one and stopping at the second. So our paper is going to look going down to that line right there. And that one was at 5/8 and this one is at 5, down to our second score mark. Okay. Now you're going to turn your paper back to where you kind of have the 3 our first side where we did the 5/8, 2.5, and 5. So we've got our paper in this orientation. We're going to put that back in our scoreboard, and at 1 7/8, which is 1 tick mark before 2, you're going to make a tick mark. Okay, so that's our little tick mark right there, and it's at 1 7/8. I'm just going to flip my paper over, and I'm going to do that again at 1 7/8. Okay, so that tick mark is strictly there to help you cut a diagonal cut. It doesn't serve any purpose other than a kind of gauge. If you wanted to put a pencil mark there instead of a tick mark with your tool, that would be fine. But that's what that purpose of that is. So we have a tick mark at 1 7/8 on both ends. Excuse me, sorry about that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and fold and burnish on all of our score lines that go completely through our paper. We will get to the ones that don't in a little bit. So all folding and burnish means is that you're just going to fold your paper over. So we have little valley folds where we made our score marks. We're going to make those into mountain folds. So I'm just making sure that my paper is somewhat straight. Like I don't have it like, you know, cockeyed off to the side. I'm trying to kind of line things up. I'm not the best of paper cutters. So I do try as I'm burnishing to make sure that they're lining up. So we're going to ignore our score marks that go halfway through for now, okay? That only went to that second score mark. We're going to ignore those for now, but we are going to fold the ones that went all the way through. On both sides. Again, trying to make sure that my paper is lining up. Okay, so that's that. So in order to free these score marks that are not all the way through the paper, we're going to go ahead and start to do some cutting. So one of the things that I want you to pay attention to is where you have things at. So you have the score marks that went just down to that second score line. Have that on your right hand side with your tick mark at the top. Okay, so tick mark at the top, score lines that went halfway through the paper on your right hand side. Okay, so I'm going to make it to where I'm just going to turn it this way. So you have a long rectangle, a square, and a long rectangle. I'm going to have you cut straight up on the rectangles. Okay, and I'm going to have you wedge into this square. So you're just making a little miter cut. So one of the things to keep in mind whenever you're doing 3D projects is that anything that folds into the box, it's a good idea to miter that. That just means you take off literally a little sliver just so that it goes into the box a little bit nicer, okay? So we've just done that. We had a rectangle, a square, and a rectangle. We cut straight down the rectangles and cut into the square. So we have that, okay? The next thing we're going to do is where we have a square, rectangle, square, rectangle, square, okay? This is the side that has your score marks that didn't go all the way down, all right? Same process. I want you to go ahead and cut straight on your rectangles. Okay, straight on your rectangles. All the way across, okay? Now, you've got a tick mark facing towards you. You've got a long rectangle, one that was on the one that didn't go all the way through, and then you have a square, okay? You are going to just cut. Imagine that you have, I'm going to draw a little pencil mark here. You obviously do not have to do that. But you are just going to connect your scissors from that little score mark down to, or your little tick mark, excuse me, down to your score mark, okay? That's all you're going to do. So I'm just going to eyeball that right across right there, okay? So there's that one. Then you've got this little tab now that should be freed up. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that so you can just kind of see where we're at, all right? Now we are going to wedge into this rectangle here because this is actually going to form our glue tab that goes into our box. Okay, so all we've done is connected our tick mark to our score line and then wedged into our rectangle, and we removed this little piece right here. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you are going to wedge again on this side, and you're going to remove that rectangle. So you have now created your little glue tab here. Okay, easy peasy. Now I'm going to rotate my paper one more time. We're going to create our glue tab here. So I'm just going to wedge into this square here. We've already cut down straight down the rectangles. We're just going to create our glue tab here. Okay, so there's that one. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to remove, we're just going to wedge, and you're actually going to wedge on this loose edge also. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We're almost done. So the last little thing we're going to do is loosen up or free up this tab right here. This is not going to be a glue tab like this one was on the opposite side, but you're going to do the same thing where you connect your scissors, your tick mark to your score line. I'm not going to draw a pencil mark this time, but you absolutely could if you felt like that helped you. Now, as opposed to where this one where we wedged in a little bit on that tab, we're not going to do that here. We're going to cut this straight across on kind of the left-hand side of our score mark just to remove our score mark, okay? So that's what I've done. I connected our tick mark to our score mark, and then I have removed our score. Do you see how there's like a little wedge there? We've just removed our score, okay? So this is our box ready to go. If you want to take a screenshot of that, if you need to. And like I said, I will list her website below and also her episode of where she did this particular project. And if you watched last Thursday's project of mine, it has the same episode number because she made 2 boxes in the same episode. So this is just the other one that she did that I thought was really great. So this is where our box is right now. Okay, so now I'm going to sharpen up that score mark that we haven't sharpened up yet. Okay, so there's that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and like dry fit our box. So the box, oh, I'm sorry. The last thing we need to do to get our hinge. So you have your score marks here. So this is where we have rectangle, square, rectangle on your left-hand side. You've got the second score mark here. This is the one that did not go all the way through your paper. No, excuse me, I lied. That is one that went all the way through your paper. This is the one that was at 2.5. So we are going to essentially just remove the score mark, okay? See how we have that bump there? We're essentially just going to remove the score mark. So I'm going to go to the right-hand side of my score mark here and try to cut as straight as possible, okay? See how I did that? Now I'm going to cut to the left-hand side of that score mark. Again, trying to be as straight as possible. There's our score mark, okay? I'm going to kind of tug that and then snip it right there. You're just cutting to this score mark here, okay? We're going to repeat that on the other side. So just stopping at the second score mark here, because we've got the one that didn't go all the way through the paper here. We're going to stop at that second one. Right here, I'm going to cut to the right of our score mark, up to stopping at that line. Now this one I'm going to cut to the left, trying to stay as straight as possible. Here is our little score mark. I'm going to give that a little tug just to kind of pull it up, and then I'm going to snip it off, okay? So this is how your box should really look. So take a screenshot now. Take a screenshot now. All right. So this is our glue tab, and I'm just going to dry fit this first, just so you can kind of see how this comes together. It is very genius. She is fabulous. Okay, so I have just brought our glue tab up, okay? Sometimes things are harder to explain than they are to just like do. You never have that problem? I have that problem. All right, our little glue tabs, our little squares are going to go in. I'm going to pull in the back, because this is my seam right here, so this is the back, and then I'm going to pull in the front, okay? That's your little box that your little Altoid smalls will come in. I am waiting on my other order to arrive. Then this is just a little bit different, and we're going to do this one more time so you can see. Just so that this slides together easier, I'm actually going to put down the back first, then the little tab, and then the front, so that we have all of our backs facing the same direction. See, our open back here, our open back here. I'm going to do that again one more time so as we glue it together so you can actually see what we're doing, because I did that kind of fast. So this is just how our box goes together, and then you hold it there and it swivels open. Isn't that just so cool? I love that. All right, so let's actually glue it. We know that we've got everything done right, so let's get to fixing it, building it. So this is our glue tab here. Ooh, got a lot of glue there. I'm going to apply adhesive all over this. You could use a tape runner if you wanted to, but with 3D projects, I much prefer when I can to use liquid glue. I feel like I get much better results. So I'm going to bring this together, trying to make sure that this top is even and these score marks at the bottom line up, okay? So notice how I don't have any overhang here, no overhang here, and my score marks line up. And I'm just going to kind of press that together. All right, now I'm going to open that up. This is what you have so far. I'm going to turn this so that this seam is facing toward me. I'm going to fold in my two sides, and I'm going to put some glue on those. A little bit of glue, a little bit of glue. And I'm going to fold down my back. And then I'm going to put some more glue on here. Especially when you're using a heavier weight, a much heavier weight cardstock, I much prefer to use a liquid glue, especially for a 3D project. So now I'm going to make sure that this is all like square. Let me roll that out of the way. I'm just going to kind of make sure that that is square. And then I'm going to take my bone folder and make sure everything's, you know, pressed in there right. Okay? This is what we have so far. So we've made the box of our swivel box. Okay? This next part is super easy. Super, super easy. I'm going to pull this down and I'm going to put it's going to be the back cover because here's the back of our box. Here's the other back of our box. I'm going to pull the back down first. Then I'm going to apply a little bit of glue to the inside of this little tab here. I'm going to try to keep things as square as possible and as tight together as possible as I do that. So I really do use my fingers to kind of square things up and squish things together. Okay, so now that our little glue tab is glued to it's kind of like the outside of the inside, I'm going to apply some more glue here. Okay, and then I'm going to roll that down. And again, just try to make sure that everything is squared up and even. Again, the reason why we do what we did here is so that when we open and shut our box, that tab is not catching on the inside of our box. Because it would be, I don't know if you can even see, it would be like right here. And as we roll our box in, it could catch. So it's not the end of the world if you forget, but if you want it to go together a bit more seamlessly, do it how I just showed you. So put the back tab in first, then put glue on the inside of your tab box, of your tab, and then put your front flap down. Okay, so that is the little swivel box all done as far as like construction of the box. So now it's on to decorating. Like I said, I'm gonna make this one for Easter. So I picked some patterned paper from my stash. This is B Floral from Paper Studio. And like I said at the beginning of the video, as of the filming of this video, this paper pad is still available if you like the patterns, which I do. I think they're very darling. So your pattern paper measurements are 1 3/4 by 2 3/8. If you have something that has a definitive direction, technically this pattern paper does, but I didn't pay attention to it. I did pay attention to it on this one. So, but on this one I did not. But if you do have a paper that has a very distinct direction, you need to make sure that you cut this in landscape mode. So your 2 3/8 side should be top and bottom, if that makes sense, what I'm saying here. Okay, so she had a very creative and ingenious way to mimic this angle on this box. So what she did is she just made sure that like the bottom and the side were touching. So she just kind of scooted those down to where they were flush. Then she flipped it over so she could see. And then she just snipped off following the angle that she made before. So that when you scoot it up, you have that angle mimicked. Isn't that just clever? She's so clever. I love her. So that's that. We're going to repeat that one more time. So I'm going to pick another paper. This one's fine. So I'm just making sure that this side, the left-hand side, and the bottom are touching. You can't see the pattern or the cardstock below it. Just going to make sure that they're touching. Okay, when I'm happy with that, I'm going to flip it over, take my scissors, and follow along that edge. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue those down. So let's do this one first. Again, you could use a tape runner here if you wanted to. If you were using a lighter weight cardstock, I would recommend using a dry adhesive to glue your pattern paper down. If you were using pattern paper, just so that it doesn't bubble and kind of warp your cardstock a little bit. She, like I said, used those Altoid smalls for this particular project, but you could use whatever you can find that will fit in the box. The finished dimensions of this box are, here, let me show you. 1 7/8 by 2.5 by 5/8 inch deep. I don't know if I told you that before, but I'm telling you now. So, and I like to actually kind of close the box so that I can get a little more leverage to make sure that that pattern paper is adhered down. And then these ones that go on the inside, you could switch up the pattern if you wanted to, or you could skip the pattern paper on these ones altogether. But if you are going to do these, your pattern paper, like I said, you need 4 pieces that measure 1 3/4 by 2 3/8. Okay, so there's that one. Let's get this one down. Let me scoot that one over. Okay. All right. That is your little box complete. I am actually going to wait to put my sentiment on here. I have, I'm just going to wait. Sometimes I like to make boxes in advance and I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to, like what occasion I'm going to give them to or give them out. But this is your little box complete. So your little Altoids go slip right on in here and then the lid slips right on over it. Isn't that so cool? I love it. So I will, like I said, will list her website down below, and I will list the episode number for this particular box. I do encourage you to check her out. She is fabulous. I do appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired. I hope that this is a project that you will give a try, and you will give a shout out to her if you do it. So, and to me, that'd be great. All right. Until then, I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.